AMD Advanced Micro Devices just reported their Q2 2025 earnings, and the stock is down roughly 4% after this report. We're going to talk in this video whether this is a trap or it's a huge opportunity that the market is missing right now. This report comes after AMD was up over 122% from the lows in April when we had the Liberation Day tariff crash. So we came into this earnings with really strong momentum behind the stock and high expectations, and they failed to meet Wall Street's estimates on a few key numbers. We're going to get into that specifically, but we're also going to get into the one thing that's holding AMD stock down right now. It's holding their revenue down. It's holding their profitability down, and as a result, it is holding their stock price down. I'm excited to get into this video, but first, if you're new here, welcome. Go ahead and click that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber on the channel. We've got more than 9,000 subscribers now. I'm trying to get to 10,000 by the end of the year. Help us reach that goal by clicking the subscribe button. Okay, let's get into the video. First, we're going to get into the headline numbers. Then we're going to hear some commentary from the management team and talk about that one thing that's holding AMD stock down right now. Then we'll dive a little further into the numbers and talk about the innovation cycle that AMD is starting right now. And then toward the end of the video, we'll talk about, is this an opportunity right now, or is this stock a trap right now? Let's get into the headline numbers from the press release. Second quarter revenue was a record $7.7 billion and gross margin was 40%. That is down year over year substantially. We'll look at that later, and they have some commentary on why that is. Operating loss was $134 million. That's compared to a major operating profit in the prior year quarter. Net income was an extremely respectable $827 million, and diluted earnings per share was 54 cents. On a non-GAAP basis, gross margin was 43%, operating income was $897 million, and net income was $781 million, with diluted EPS on a non-GAAP basis of 48 cents per share. On a GAAP basis, revenue was up 32% year over year. Net income was up 229% year over year, from a low $265 million in Q2 of 2024 all the way to $872 million in Q2 of 2025. Diluted EPS on a GAAP basis was up 238% from 16 cents up to 54 cents in the current period. The headline numbers, especially revenue growth, net income growth, and EPS growth, are extremely strong given what I'm about to talk about right now, which is that one thing that's holding AMD stock down. Check out their commentary here. They say, as previously announced, their second quarter results were impacted by the U.S. government's export control on the AMD MI308 data center GPU product. For the quarter, these restrictions led to approximately $800 million in inventory and related charges. That's where the operating loss is coming from. That's where the gross margin hit is coming from. Excluding these charges, non-GAAP gross margin would have been 54%. This is a major impact. That's 11% higher from the non-GAAP gross margin they reported of 43%. This is not some small thing. These export controls, due to the trade war between the US and China, are hurting AMD's revenue in a major way. They're hurting AMD's profitability in a major way, and even with all that, they still grew revenue by 32% year over year. Imagine what their revenue growth numbers would look like, and their profitability numbers would look like, and their margin numbers would look like if we didn't have that negative impact from the export control situation between the US and China. They still beat revenue in the quarter, reporting roughly $7.7 billion in Q2 2025 versus $7.42 billion expected from analysts. And earnings per share was close to in line. It was technically a 1 cent miss per share due to the impact of those export controls on the MI308. There is some good news here in relation to this situation, because in July, AMD said they expected shipments of the MI308 to resume after the Trump administration signaled it would approve waivers for AMD to be able to ship these MI308s overseas. AMD has set themselves up perfectly to come in and crush numbers in Q3 and Q4 of 2025, because they didn't even include the MI308 revenue at all inside their Q3 guide, which was a very strong guide. Check it out here. For Q3 2025, AMD expects revenue of approximately $8.7 billion plus or minus $300 million, so could be $8.4 billion or as high as $9 billion. At the midpoint of the revenue range, this represents year-over-year growth of approximately 28% and quarter-over-quarter growth of 13%. Non-GAAP gross margin is expected to be approximately 54%. That's way higher than what they were able to report in Q2 due to the trade war issues, and it's more in line with what we expect AMD to report in terms of gross margins. They say here in their press release, our current outlook does not include any revenue from the AMD Instinct 308 shipments to China, as our license applications are currently under review by the US government. That's a very smart idea to not include that in the revenue and just say, hey, worst case scenario, we're still going to grow revenue by 28%. And if we get approval, that revenue number is about to explode higher, way higher than 28%. We might see an acceleration from Q2 2025 to Q3 of 2025 in terms of their revenue growth rate. In the short term, any news around export controls is going to make AMD stock move massive. Any positive news around the trade war with China is going to make the stock move up. Any negative news around the trade war with China, AMD stock is going to move down. It's heavily linked to this, and the impact is very evident inside the Q2 numbers and inside the Q3 guide. Let's check out the specific results in Q2 for the three different business segments: data center segment, client and gaming segment, and the embedded segment. And don't forget that $800 million impact in inventory and related expenses due to the export controls. That's going to show up in the data center revenue and data center profitability. So when we're checking these numbers out, just remember that is what's holding these numbers down, and they should reverse very quickly, if not in Q3, then in Q4 of 2025. Data center revenue, even with all the trade drama, was up 14% year over year. Operating income was very rough for the data center revenue due to the $800 million impact. The rollout of the MI350 and the MI400 coming out in 2026 should make at least 6 quarters straight of absolutely insane revenue growth and operating income growth in the data center segment. I definitely see this quarter as the low over the next few years for AMD on the data center side in terms of revenue and in terms of operating income. Lisa Su, the CEO of AMD, said, "We are seeing robust demand across our computing and AI product portfolio, and we are well positioned to deliver significant growth in the second half of the year, driven by the ramp of our AMD Instinct MI350 series accelerators and ongoing EPYC and Ryzen processor share gains." I'm very excited to see Q3 and Q4 data center numbers, even if they don't get the MI308, which I do think they'll get that waiver. Even if they don't get that waiver, the MI350 ramp is going to lead to crazy gains on the data center side. The client and gaming segment was by far and away the best segment in this quarter. Revenue was up 69% year over year, and operating income for the segment was up 362% year over year, from $166 million in the year ago period all the way to $767 million in this quarter. Sequentially, meaning from Q1 25 to Q2 25, revenue for the segment was up 23% and operating income was up 55%. Those are some very impressive sequential gains. And this is a testament to the innovation cycle that they've just started and a sneak peek of what we're going to get to see inside the data center results over the next 6+ quarters. The embedded segment for AMD, which is by far their lowest revenue segment, had a really rough quarter. Revenues were down 4% year over year, and operating income was down 20% year over year. I'll be looking for them to turn that around in Q3 and Q4 of 2025. If the embedded segment stays weak and the other two continue to ramp through their new innovation cycle, no one will be worried at all. No one will even talk about the embedded segment. They're just going to talk about the insane data center revenue and the ridiculous client and gaming revenue we're about to see in Q3 and beyond. The management team significantly reduced risk on the balance sheet by paying down over $950 million in debt. Total debt is now $3.2 billion, which is down from the prior quarter of $4.1 billion. Bringing debt down by 23% in a single quarter is very impressive, and I'm glad they're taking some debt off the books. They also used some cash to repurchase stock in the quarter. $478 million of common stock was repurchased inside Q2 of 2025. So now, is this stock an opportunity or is it a trap? And what am I personally doing with AMD stock? I believe that this stock is an opportunity right now. I don't think it's a trap at all. And I think this 4% drop is a little blessing. The revenue and profitability ramp that AMD is set up for with the MI308 waivers coming, the MI350 rollout that's just now starting, and the MI400 that's coming in 2026, the data center revenue is about to be absolutely ridiculous. So what am I doing with AMD stock right now? I am buying more shares. I've bought throughout this year. I started buying at the very end of 2024. I bought shares as low as $79 and as high as $160. Any drops AMD has in the short term, I welcome those drops because I can go out there and pick up more shares at a cheaper price. The growth opportunity that AMD has over the next 1.5 to 3 years is just too compelling for me to pass up on. Let me know what you think about AMD in the comments below, and where do you think this stock is going to go over the next 1 to 3 years? I look forward to seeing your comments down there. Definitely one of my favorite parts of posting here on YouTube is having some conversation with you guys. I appreciate you being here in a major way. Thank you so much. Have a great night.